back to our social media. I think there's a math question maybe coming in. Is that correct, Luigi?
There is a math question coming in. You guys are like psychic. How do you know what
I
questions
just
are
know
coming in?
these things. It's great.
What is the quadratic formula and when should I use it? Quadratic formula.
Oh, my students are working on this a lot right now. Quadratic formula is one of those math things that when people look at it, they are like, whoa, that's a lot of math. First off, I'm going to direct you to my computer screen just because it can get quite messy looking. I guess what I should say at first is the quadratic formula is a formula that is used to solve quadratic equations. So let me back up and explain what a quadratic equation is. The general form of a quadratic equation is when you set it equal to 0, and then it looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. Really what makes it quadratic, which is a really complicated sounding word, is just the fact that it's a squared. It has that in the equation. So that's what makes it quadratic. The quadratic formula basically is what happens if you get x by itself in this equation. I am not going to bore you with deriving the quadratic equation. It's quite complicated algebra. But basically what it is when you get x by itself in this equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, it's this: negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You might wonder how, I mean, that seems really complicated. How does she have that memorized? Well, when you use it a lot, it ends up being something that you memorize. And even my students, they get this memorized too. When they first start working with it, they're like, whoa, that seems really scary. But once they get used to it, it just is something that they just know. Now, really the way that you use it is you want to get your equation into general form first, meaning make it look like this: 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Then when your equation is in that form, so let me give you an example here, 2x squared minus 3x plus 7. Random quadratic equation, but when it's in that form, then you can see pretty easily what your a is, what your b is, and what your c is. So in this example, your a is 2, your b is negative 3, and then your c is 7. And then from there, it's plugging it in. You just, instead of b, you're going to replace it with b, the number, and then instead of a, and so on. Then from that point, what you'll do is you'll simplify. You will end up with, most of the time, not always, if your equation has 2 solutions, you'll end up with 2 answers, one because of the plus, one because of the minus. And basically what you're doing is solving for that quadratic equation. What is x to make this equation true? But it's a way to do it that always works. It's just a little complicated sometimes. But if you guys have any more questions about the quadratic equation or any specific examples you want to see it worked on, I'm happy to do that. Or if you really want to see it derived, maybe we'll make a back to basics video on it, but I'm not going to bore you with that right now. But hopefully that helps you for at least the time being.